Performer with Sesame Street. I perform, direct, produce.
See, Elmo wears no clothes, so he'll just go.
Can you sing the alphabet, Joey?
Yes, yes I could.
Let's hear you sing the alphabet.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, Cookie Monster.
Sesame Street wasn't the show we thought it was. Behind the songs and the counting games, there were moments so strange, so bold, and so unexpected that most of us never heard about them as kids.
Do you have,
Elmo doesn't understand who this man is.
A band episode that scared children out of the room. A Muppet removed for a reason no one explained. A storyline the studio filmed, tested, and then threw in the trash, and a real-life moment that broke the cast in ways the cameras barely captured. And the wild part, all of it happened on a kids' show.
Fishy, fishy, fishy! One fish?
Fact 1, the episode that was so scary, Sesame Street pretended it never happened.
Ooh, curses.
Let me tell you something wild that almost nobody knew back then. One day in the 70s, Sesame Street brought in the actual Wicked Witch of the West, same actress, same voice, same terrifying energy. Kids didn't just get a little scared, they panicked. Parents wrote in saying their kids ran out of the room, hid behind couches, and begged them to turn the TV off. Some kids even refused to watch Sesame Street for days. So what did the show do? They quietly pulled the entire episode, locked it away, and acted like it never existed. For decades, people thought it was a rumor. As grown-ups, we finally get why it vanished. And the next fact? That one doesn't just involve an episode. It involves a whole state trying to erase the show. Fact 2, the state that tried to erase Sesame Street.
Big Bird, what are you doing up? It's the middle of the night.
I came to show you the moon, Maria.
Here's a story most people today don't believe until they look it up. In 1970, the entire state of Mississippi tried to block Sesame Street from airing. Not because it was violent, not because it was weird, but because the cast was integrated. Yep, some folks on the TV commission didn't like seeing black and white kids and adults hanging out together like it was perfectly normal. So they voted to keep Sesame Street off the air. But here's the part that hits differently as adults. The backlash was so loud that the ban lasted only 22 days. Parents fought back, news outlets roasted the decision, and the show came roaring back on TV. And the next fact? It's about a Muppet who was loved by kids but removed for reasons adults still argue about. Fact 3, the Muppet removed for being too much.
Everybody stand up. We're all standing up.
Back in the early 70s, there was a Muppet named Roosevelt Franklin. Kids loved him. He was loud, funny, full of energy, and always running his own classroom like he owned the place. He taught lessons through little songs and jokes, and he stood out because he didn't act like the calm, gentle Muppets we were used to. But that became the problem. Some grown-ups complained that he was too rowdy and might teach kids the wrong behavior. Others said he reinforced stereotypes about black kids. Even though he was created and voiced by a black performer, Gordon's actor, Matt Robinson, the show slowly phased him out. As kids, we never understood why he vanished. But the next fact makes his removal look mild, because this one deals with a character some believed was an insult to entire communities. Fact 4, the trash can monster with a hidden meaning.
And I've always wanted to do that. Welcome to Sesame Street, PhD face.
When we were kids, Oscar the Grouch was just the funny, cranky guy in the garbage can. We laughed at him. We copied his voice. We didn't think twice. But adults later pointed out something uncomfortable. Oscar lived in trash, snapped at everyone, and acted like society had given up on him. Some early critics claimed he was a symbol for poor, inner-city residents, people who had been pushed aside and forgotten. Sesame Street never confirmed that, but the idea stuck. Looking back now, Oscar feels different. He wasn't just grumpy. He showed kids a part of city life that wasn't shiny or perfect. And if that sounds deep, wait till you hear the next fact. Because the show once used a real death to teach kids a lesson no cartoon ever dared to touch. Fact 5. The day Sesame Street had to teach kids about death.
Big Bird, don't you remember we told you Mr. Hooper died? He's dead.
Oh, yeah.
In the early 80s, something heartbreaking happened behind the scenes. Will Lee, the actor who played Mr. Hooper, passed away. The writers had a choice: replace him, pretend he moved away, or tell kids the truth. And they chose honesty. They brought Big Bird onto the set, sat him down with the adults, and explained in the simplest words possible that Mr. Hooper had died. No magic, no silly cover-up, no, he went to sleep. As kids, the scene hit us without fully understanding why. As adults, we now see it for what it was, one of the most honest moments ever shown on television. And the next fact, it involves an episode so heavy, Sesame Street filmed the whole thing, then threw it in the trash before anyone could see it. Fact 6. The episode Sesame Street filmed, then destroyed.
Hi, Bob.
Hi.
Say hello to Sally. She just moved into the neighborhood.
Hi, Sally. How
That's
are you?
Bob.
There's one Sesame Street episode almost nobody has ever seen, even though it was fully filmed and ready to air. It was the Snuffy's parents get a divorce storyline from the early 90s. The writers wanted to help kids understand divorce the same way they helped them understand death. They tried to show that parents can separate but still love their kids. Sounds helpful, right? But when they tested it, things went wrong fast. Kids watching the test screening got scared. Many thought if parents argued even once, it meant divorce. Some thought the parents would stop loving Snuffy. The episode caused so much confusion that the show scrapped the entire thing and hid it away. And if that sounds intense, the next fact is even more surprising. Because it involves a character adults finally decided to believe. Fact 7, the secret behind why adults wouldn't see Snuffy.
Did somebody tickle you?
No, Selena, that's not why I'm laughing.
For years, there was a running joke on Sesame Street. Every time Big Bird tried to show the grown-ups his huge, gentle friend Snuffleupagus, they missed him by seconds. As kids, we found it funny. As adults, we realized it sent the wrong message. Child psychologists warned the show that this gag could teach kids, adults won't believe you when you tell the truth. That was dangerous, especially for children who might need to speak up about something serious in real life. So in 1985, the show made a major shift. They finally let the adults meet Snuffy and believe him. Big Bird cried tears of relief, and so did many parents watching. But the next fact? It's about the moment Sesame Street realized kids only cared about one thing, and it changed the whole show forever. Fact 8. The shocking test that forced Sesame Street to rewrite the show.
Oscar? Oscar?
Yeah?
Come on out. Now look, be a nice guy. This is a nice little girl. She's new to the neighborhood. Say hello to her. This is Sally.
No.
When Sesame Street first started, the human actors and the Muppets didn't even appear together. They were in separate segments because experts thought mixing them would confuse kids. But then, Sesame Street researchers tried something bold. They showed kids the early episodes while running eye-tracking tests. The result hit them like a truck. Kids paid attention the whole time the Muppets were on screen and completely tuned out when it cut back to the humans. Boom, instant problem. So the show threw the old plan away and rebuilt everything. They put Big Bird, Oscar, and the gang right on the street, interacting with the adults. It changed children's television forever. And the next fact? That one shows just how far the show went to study kids, down to every blink and glance. Fact 9. The strange attention lab behind Sesame Street.
Oh, look at that delicious soup. There you are, sir.
Okay, I'll just check it out.
Check what out.
Most kids shows guessed what would keep kids watching. Sesame Street didn't. They built an entire lab where researchers watched kids watch them. They tracked eyes, timing reactions, and measured when kids lost interest using something called a distractor test. If the kid looked away during a segment, the writers cut it or rewrote it. They even created interest meters. Kids pressed a button whenever a scene grabbed their attention. If the button graph dropped, that scene got fixed. It was like science class meets Hollywood. And it worked so well that the show still uses version of it today. But the next fact gets even weirder because it involves a storyline where Sesame Street destroyed Big Bird's entire home on purpose. Fact 10, the hurricane that took out Big Bird's nest.
Here's a father nose. Got that?
Thank you.
You could use father eyes.
Please.
2.
One year, Sesame Street decided to teach kids about something very real and very scary. Natural disasters. So they wrote a full storyline where a hurricane hits Sesame Street and wipes out Big Bird's nest. Everything he loved gone. Big Bird cried, the adults comforted him, and the whole neighborhood helped him rebuild his home from scratch. It wasn't cute or silly. It was raw, honest, and emotional. As kids, We didn't realize they were teaching us how to handle fear, loss, and recovery. As adults, we see how bold it was for a children's show to face something this heavy head on. And if that isn't surprising enough, the next fact takes things global and shows how Sesame Street tackled a topic even adults struggled to talk about. Fact 11, the first HIV-positive Muppet shocked the world.
Everybody wash your chest!
In South Africa's version of Sesame Street, the team created a character named Tommy, a little Muppet who was HIV positive. She wasn't scary or sad, she was gentle, curious, and friendly. Her purpose was simple: teach kids that people with HIV deserved love, support, and dignity. In the early 2000s, this was huge. Some American politicians even tried to block Sesame Street over it, calling the idea too sensitive for children. But in South Africa, Kami became a symbol of honesty and hope. She helped reduce stigma for millions of children growing up during the AIDS crisis. As kids, we had no idea Sesame Street versions around the world went that deep. And the next fact, it brings us back to the U.S., to a moment that broke the cast so deeply they could only film it once. Fact 12, the scene they could only film once.
Well, as relaxed as I can get.
Oh, that's really scary.
There's one moment on Sesame Street the cast never forgot and they never filmed it twice. It's the famous scene where the adults explain to Big Bird that Mr. Hooper has died. What most of us never knew as kids is that the emotions you see on screen are real. Will Lee, the actor who played Mr. Hooper, had passed away in real life, and the cast was grieving someone they truly loved. When the camera started rolling, the sadness hit so hard that the producers decided not to ask for another take. Everything you saw, the shaking voices, the long silence, the tears, was genuine. And the next twist in Sesame Street history starts with a monster who didn't even begin his life-loving cookies. Fact 13, Cookie Monster started as a monster who ate wheels.
And you need a W to make such words as wash and woman and weeping willow. I'm sorry, I thought I was supposed to talk about W, but they sent me an N here instead.
Before he ever shouted, "Me want cookie," Cookie Monster had a very different job. In the late 60s, Jim Henson built an early version of the puppet for snack commercials. But this monster didn't eat treats, he ate machines. Literally. He was shown chomping down on gears, wheels, and anything mechanical he could get his fuzzy hands on. Kids back then never saw those ads. So by the time Sesame Street came around, the creators repurposed the monster, dyed him blue, softened his voice, and turned him into the cookie-crushing legend we know today. As adults, it's hilarious to imagine Cookie Monster as a tiny blue villain stealing equipment. But the next surprise involves another Muppet who didn't just change behavior, he changed his entire color. Fact. 40 and Oscar the Grouch was originally bright orange.
I'm gonna tell him he's mean and nasty and... let me tell you, fella. Good.
If your childhood memory of Oscar is green and grumpy, you're half right. But in season 1, Oscar wasn't green at all. He was bright orange. The puppet was smaller, scruffier, and honestly, a little chaotic looking. Viewers didn't question it back then, but backstage the creators realized the puppet was too limited and didn't pop on camera. So in season 2, they brought in a bigger puppet, changed the texture, and dyed him green. Oscar later joked on the show that he turned green after visiting a swamp, which became a running gag. As adults, the color swap looks obvious. As kids, we accepted it without blinking. And the next reveal shows how even the name of the show nearly took a completely different path. Fact 15, Sesame Street's original name was a real New York address.
Say hello to Jenny.
Hi.
Jenny, this is Sally. Sally just moved into Sesame Street. She's going to be here with us for a while.
Long before Sesame Street became iconic, the creators almost named the show 123 Avenue B. It was a real address in Manhattan's East Village. The idea was to place the show in a real city neighborhood that kids could recognize. But the more they discussed it, the more they realized a real street tied the show down. They wanted a place that felt friendly, open, and magical, something kids everywhere could imagine living on. That's when someone suggested Sesame, as in open sesame, meaning open the door to learning. The team loved it. As adults, it's easy to see why they dropped the old name. And the next fact uncovers why Sesame Street looked so much like the neighborhoods many city kids were growing up in. Fact 16. The street was designed to look like a real New York block. When you picture Sesame Street, you probably remember the brownstones, the fire escapes, the stoops, and the little corner store. None of that was an accident. The creators wanted the set to look like a real New York neighborhood, specifically the kind of streets kids in the late 60s and 70s walked every day. The production team studied Harlem, the Bronx, and the Upper West Side, paying attention to broken steps, old storefronts, and tight little alleys. They didn't want a TV town. They wanted the real thing. As kids, it felt normal. As adults, we realized how rare it was to see an honest city block on a children's show. And the next fact proves they weren't just copying the city, they were building something the city eventually copied back. Fact 17, Sesame Street became a real street in New York City.
It's a very powerful broom and a very mean lady.
For decades, Sesame Street was just a TV location until New York decided to make it real. In 2019, the city honored the show's impact by officially naming a corner on the Upper West Side, Sesame Street. They put up a real sign, held a big ceremony, and let fans finally stand on a street they'd only imagined since childhood. It's strange when you think about it. A children's show created a place so iconic that the real world eventually reshaped itself to match the fictional one. Not many TV shows get that kind of honor. As adults, the whole moment hits with nostalgia, like your childhood suddenly became part of the actual city map. But the next fact goes back to the human cast, and a choice the show made that was groundbreaking for American TV. In fact, Aiding Gordon and Susan changed TV without saying a word. When Sesame Street launched in 1969, America rarely saw a black married couple leading a family-friendly show. Gordon and Susan weren't side characters, they were the emotional core of the neighborhood. They were warm, educated, respected, and treated as equals among their neighbors. For many kids, this was the first time they saw a black family living a normal, everyday life on TV without stereotypes or jokes attached. The show didn't make speeches about it. They just let kids grow up seeing it as normal. As adults, we realize how bold that was for the late 60s. Sesame Street wasn't just teaching ABCs, it was challenging the world without announcing it. And the next fact shows just how global that mission became, far beyond New York or the US. Fact 9-18, Sesame Street grew into one of the world's biggest educators.
Hi, I'm a seal. Seal begins with the letter S.
By the early 2000s, Sesame Street wasn't just a TV show, it was a massive education system, reaching kids in over 100 countries. Some places aired the American version. Others created their own versions with local characters, local languages, and local stories. In places with conflict, they used Muppets to teach peace. In places with health crises, they taught safety. In places with cultural divides, they taught respect. As kids, we never thought about where Sesame Street aired. As adults, it's surprising to realize it may have taught more children than many formal school systems. And the next fact shows how some countries reacted when Sesame Street first arrived. Hint, not everyone was ready for it. Fact 20, some countries thought Sesame Street was too radical.
Quieter! Elmo, will you please be quiet, Elmo?
When Sesame Street reached other parts of the world, not everyone welcomed it right away. Some broadcasters complained the show was too loud, too fast, too diverse, or too socially bold. In the UK, for example, debates broke out over whether it fit British culture at all. Some places thought the American style, bright colors, upbeat songs, and tough real-life topics was risky for kids. But time changed minds. Once viewers saw the learning results, more countries picked it up. Today, many nations have their own beloved Sesame Street characters. As adults, it's strange to think a kids' show was once seen as dangerous. And the next fact dives into the scientific system behind the show, something no other children's program had ever attempted. Fact 21, Sesame Street treated every episode like a science experiment. Most kids' shows write scripts, animate, record, and hope for the best. Sesame Street had a different rule. Nothing aired unless research said it worked. Every season, educators, writers, and child development experts sat together and built a curriculum. Letters, numbers, emotions, social skills. Then they created scenes, tested them with real kids, measured attention, fixed weak spots, and tested again. It was like running a classroom and a lab at the same time. As kids, we just enjoyed the songs and puppets. As adults, it's mind-blowing knowing the show was backed by real science from day one. And the next fact reveals just how far that research spread. It didn't just change the show, it changed education itself. Fact 22, Sesame Street helped create entire fields of educational research.
Attention, thank you very much.
Back in the 70s and 80s, Sesame Street wasn't just entertaining kids, it was inspiring universities. Researchers studied everything from how long kids watched before looking away, to how songs improved memory, to how characters shaped attitudes about race. By the early 80s, there were hundreds of studies connected to Sesame Street. Professors wrote papers, held conferences, and used the show as a model for how media could actually teach. As kids, we had no clue. We were part of a giant scientific experiment every time we sat in front of the TV with our cereal. As adults, it's wild realizing our childhood show helped shape modern education. And the next fact shows how Sesame Street tackled big life lessons while carefully avoiding one topic almost every show relies on. Fact 23. The show avoided religion on purpose, even in tough episodes.
You know what? I like you, Mr. Rogers.
I like you too, Big Bird.
Oh, hey, want to meet Radar? Come here.
Sesame Street wasn't afraid to talk about scary things, death, fear, big emotions, even natural disasters. But one topic they almost never touched was religion. When they wrote the Mr. Hooper episode, the writers avoided phrases like, he's in a better place, or he's with the angels. They didn't want to confuse kids or favor one belief over another. They stuck to emotions, honesty, and comfort. This approach followed the same rule for marriage, grief, holidays, and even moral lessons. The show wanted every child, no matter their background, to feel included. As adults, we notice how carefully they walked that line. And the next fact shifts from ideas to visuals, specifically the powerful real-life footage they used to make the world feel familiar. Fact 24, Sesame Street used real neighborhood kids to keep it authentic.
Come assemble! Alphabet Bates is on the scene, a skywriter. Look up there. Look, you see it?
While most children's shows used cartoons or staged scenes, Sesame Street mixed in real documentary-style footage of kids playing outside, walking to school, riding bikes, counting objects, or just being themselves. These little films came straight from real New York streets. The goal was to show children a world that looked like theirs. Not perfect, not polished, but real. As kids, these clips blended naturally with the show. As adults, we realize how important they were. They built a sense of community, culture, and everyday reality into a show with talking monsters and giant birds. And the next fact zooms in on one of the strangest pieces of that reality, a single trash can that somehow held an entire universe. Fact 25, Oscar's trash can was basically a cartoon dimension. Oscar's trash can looks tiny from the outside, but inside, that thing was enormous. Over the years, we saw hints that it contained multiple rooms, hallways, a pet worm named Slimy, and even a swimming pool. In one storyline, he even drove a car called the Sloppy Jalopy out of it. The running joke was simple. Oscar lived in a trash can that broke the laws of physics. As kids, we laughed. As adults, it feels like Sesame Street's version of a cartoon wormhole, small entrance, giant world inside. And the next fact reveals how the show used special guests not just for fun, but to teach kids about every kind of person in the real world. Fact 26 guest stars were chosen to reflect every kind of life.
I must say, that's a nice way to wake up.
From the 70s onward, Sesame Street brought in athletes, doctors, singers, astronauts, firefighters, dancers, soldiers, and even Supreme Court justices. This wasn't random. The show wanted kids to see people of every race, job, and ability as normal. Guests didn't show up to brag, they came to teach, help, sing, or just hang out with the neighbors. Seeing someone like an opera singer standing next to Big Bird or a baseball star teaching counting made every profession feel reachable. As adults, we see how powerful that was. The show didn't preach diversity, it lived it. And the next fact shows just how massive this impact became. Millions of kids every single morning. Fact 27. By the late 70s, Sesame Street reached 9 million kids a day.
Hey, Hey, Ernie. Hey, wake up, you meatball. You're supposed to be learning something.
Oh.
By the end of the 70s, Sesame Street wasn't just popular, it was everywhere. Studies showed that close to 9 million preschool-age children in the US watched the show every day. That meant millions of kids were learning letters, numbers, kindness, and social skills long before they even reached kindergarten. No other children's show came close. Teachers noticed, parents noticed, even critics who didn't love the show admitted it changed childhood education. As adults, it's wild to think about how many of us learned the same songs, the same lessons, the same characters together. And the next fact brings us back to the woman who started it all and how her idea was considered radical at the time. Fact: 28 Sesame Street was built to help poor kids first. Most people think Sesame Street was always meant for all kids, but that's not true. When Joan Gans Cooney created the show in the late 60s, her goal was very clear: help preschoolers in low-income neighborhoods get the same head start as kids in well-funded areas. The show's entire design, an urban street, diverse neighbors, real-life problems, simple lessons, was aimed at children who didn't have access to good early education. Sesame Street wasn't just entertainment. It was a tool to close learning gaps. As kids, we just watched for the songs and the puppets. As adults, we realize how revolutionary that idea was. And the next fact takes it even further. Because the show didn't just target these kids, it actually proved it could lift their test scores. Fact: 29 Sesame Street literally raised children's test scores.
Can you sing the alphabet, Joey?
Yes, I could.
Let's hear you sing the alphabet.
A, B, C, D.
In the early 70s, researchers at ETS ran huge studies comparing kids who watched Sesame Street regularly with kids who didn't. The results shocked everyone. Children who watched the show scored higher on letter recognition, number skills, problem solving, and even social understanding. And the more they watched, the better they did. It proved TV could actually teach, not just entertain. Politicians used the results to argue for more public broadcasting. Teachers used episodes in classrooms. Parents trusted the show more than ever. As adults, it's wild to think our morning TV time counted as real education. And the next fact shows how even the setting of the show carried deeper meaning than anyone realized when we were kids. Fact 30. The street's location was a mix of real New York neighborhoods. Sesame Street never says exactly where it is, but behind the scenes, the art team built it from pieces of Harlem, the Bronx, and the Upper West Side. They wanted the street to feel safe, but real. Friendly, but familiar. They mixed brownstones, corner stores, metal trash cans, stoops, and fire escapes to create a neighborhood that felt like a blend of many. For millions of kids growing up in cities, it looked like home. For kids in suburbs or small towns, it felt like a window into another world. As adults, it's obvious how carefully crafted it was. And the next fact shows what happened when the real New York decided to honor that imaginary street. Fact 31. New York City turned Sesame Street into a real place.
And a lot of us up here raised our kids with the help of Sesame Street.
On the show, Sesame Street was just a fictional block. But in 2019, New York City made it official. They named a real intersection, Sesame Street, to honor the show's 50 years of helping children. Fans lined up, the cast came out, and people took photos under the new sign like they were visiting a childhood landmark. It was a rare moment when a TV world crossed over into real life. As adults, moments like this hit differently, almost like a piece of your childhood stepped out of the TV and into the actual city. And the next fact returns to the cast, and how two of them quietly made television history just by being themselves. Fact 32, Gordon and Susan quietly broke barriers on TV.
Wow. I know, I go in there every other day.
There you go, Milt.
Gordon and Susan weren't written as historic characters. They were written as real people. A married black couple, raising a family, living on a friendly street, and respected by everyone around them. In the late 60s, this was almost unheard of on national television. They weren't sidekicks, jokes, or stereotypes. They were teachers, helpers, parents, and pillars of the community. The show never pointed to their race as special. It simply let children see diversity as normal. As adults, we understand the weight of that decision. Sesame Street didn't just teach ABCs. It helped shift culture. And the next fact goes global, showing how this idea spread across the entire world. Fact 33, Sesame Street became a worldwide teaching machine. By the 2000s, Sesame Street had versions in places like Mexico, Germany, Israel, China, South Africa, India, and more. Each country created its own Muppets, its own street, and its own stories, sometimes tackling issues unique to that culture. In war-torn areas, they taught peace. In places with health crises, they taught safety. In areas divided by ethnicity, they taught tolerance. As kids, we had no clue the show had this kind of global reach. As adults, it's mind-blowing realizing Sesame Street became the world's biggest informal teacher. And the next fact digs into something surprising because not every country welcomed this American style of learning right away. Fact 34. Some countries thought Sesame Street was too American. When Sesame Street spread around the world, not everyone rolled out the welcome mat. In the 70s and 80s, some countries said the show felt too American, too fast, too bright, too diverse, too bold. British broadcasters argued about whether the upbeat songs and jump cut editing worked for children in the UK. Others worried the show's honesty about feelings, race, and real-life problems would clash with their culture. In some places, educators thought children should learn quietly, not from a giant yellow bird counting on a stoop. But slowly, results changed minds. Kids learned faster, teachers noticed, and Sesame Street became nearly impossible to ignore. As adults, it's funny thinking a kids' show was once seen as a cultural risk. And the next fact reveals the scientific engine behind the show, the system that changed children's TV forever. Fact 35, Sesame Street treated every season like a science lab. Other kids' shows guessed what might work. Sesame Street tested it. Before a season aired, writers, teachers, and researchers met to decide what kids needed most. Letters, numbers, emotions, problem solving. Then they built episodes around those goals, tested the scenes with real preschoolers, watched what held their attention, rewrote what didn't, and tested again. Nothing went on TV unless it proved it could teach. That's why Sesame Street felt sharper, faster, and more engaging than other shows. It wasn't luck, it was research. As kids, we just thought it was fun. As adults, we see how the show was basically running a classroom and a science lab at the same time. And the next fact shows how this research didn't just shape Sesame Street, it shaped the entire field of early childhood education. Sesame Street wasn't just a show we watched, it was a world we grew up in. And looking back now, all these strange, bold, and hidden moments make it feel even more special. It taught us more than we realized, showed us more than we understood, and shaped whole generations without ever bragging about it. If you watched Sesame Street in the 70s or 80s, tell me what you remember. Which moment stuck with you? Which character felt like a friend? Because trust me, there are still more secrets on that old street than anyone ever noticed.